Hey guys, Tommy with Studio Sense here. Happy that you stopped by today. I've been talking with some friends about a certain type of fragrance. Today's question that we're going to answer is, what exactly is a mature fragrance? Is it a genre? Is it the same thing as Barbershop? And better yet, what are 10 examples of classic, manly, mature fragrances? We've got that and more coming your way, so stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone. So today we're talking about mature, manly, masculine fragrances. Are gentlemanly fragrances the same thing as Barbershop? Well, they can be, but they are not one and the same. It's not the same genre. Barbershop is light, lemony, minty, fresh, green that you splash on, that you put on, or that is put on you right after a good shave or good haircut, right after you've gotten the hot towel and the beard treatment. It's that kind of like almost aftershave, except it lasts a bit longer. It's a little bit spicier. That's Barbershop. Now, Barbershop and gentleman fragrances can be, again, they can be the same, but they are not the same genre. The difference between gentleman fragrances and Barbershop fragrances, gentleman fragrances have a longer shelf life, right? They are signature scents, fragrances that you can wear to define who you are, to define your deportment and what you're all about. Whereas Barbershop fragrances are specifically for the event of, getting manscaped or whatever. And so today I thought I would feature 10 fragrances that represent a mature masculine gentleman, because there are several fragrances on the market now that are very classic. The very first gentlemanly fragrance comes from the house of Burberry. It is called Burberry Weekend. Let me tell you, nothing smells more like 1997 than Burberry Weekend. That was actually when it was launched. While Weekend opens with grapefruit, mandarin, and lemon, you don't really get a lot of citrus fruits. You get more of a spicy infusion of notes that are near Barbershop. In the heart, you get a bit of ivy and oak moss that come across very musky. In the base, you get a mixture of sandalwood, honey, and amber. So some little bit more modern notes, but the take on is definitely early 2000s kind of feel. Burberry Weekend, I actually blind bought. Had I smelled it, I may not have purchased it. It's not really my kind of fragrance, but when I smell it, it definitely makes me think of a bit more mature, serious kind of gentleman. And it is a classic. Many people wear it and enjoy it, and it definitely belongs to that Cologne Confidential era. Burberry Weekend by Burberry. Our next gentleman fragrance is probably one of the best releases in the late 90s. I think 1997 was when it was launched. It is a Versace fragrance. It is the Dreamer. Now, the Dreamer isn't by definition and by formula a Barbershop fragrance at all. It's got a very different kind of flavor or vibe to it. You've got juniper, artemisia, tarragon, lily, iris flax. There's even tobacco flower in the base. A lot of floral notes. A very floral heavy fragrance that happens to be quite masculine. The Dreamer has one of the best introspective, classic kind of scent profiles and formulas ever in a fragrance, and it will never be old. It's one of those fragrances that will never grow old, but it's not necessarily a young man's fragrance. It is a bit more mature. It takes itself seriously. Even as the name is the Dreamer, it's still a relatively serious fragrance, and that's why it's one of the best gentleman fragrances ever. The Dreamer by Versace. Our next gentleman fragrance is one from Dolce & Gabbana that I've discussed in the past, and I've mentioned that it makes me think of old money when I smell it. And while that's still the case, it does do a lot more than that. It is Intenso, or Intenso Pour Homme. Intenso is an interesting fragrance that almost defies category because it has aquatic notes in it. It's got a hay note, right? It's got heavier notes like labdanum. It's got floral notes. It's got spice. So it's a kind of one of those upscale feeling fragrances, but you can definitely wear it very casually. Well, the reason it is, I feel, a gentleman fragrance and making my gentleman list is, again, it's one of those fragrances that when you smell, there's no playfulness. Very pleasant, very midline. There's no highs or lows in this fragrance. It's just a very smooth, intelligent scent profile. And that's why I think it's one of the best gentleman fragrances that was released in 2014, I believe. And to this day, I think one of the best. Intenso Pour Homme by Dolce & Gabbana. For our next gentleman fragrance, we're going to go back to 1985, but it doesn't smell like 1985. I absolutely really respect this fragrance. Even to this day, I think it's one of the very few gentleman fragrances that I feel like I can make a signature scent out of. It is by Caron, and it is Homme de Caron III. This one opens with bergamot and orange, so bright and citrus, but it has coriander, lavender, and clove in the heart. It's one of those fragrances that makes use of clove. So it's a lightly resinous, a little bit darker in the heart of it, but it has a really elegant dry oak moss and vetiver base that it dries down to pretty much where it stays. This is another one of those serious gentleman fragrances that comes across slightly barbershop. What I really like about this, even though there's no mint in this, it has almost like an effervescent kind of mint style or vibe to it that is super refreshing, and it lasts throughout the life of the fragrance. Kind of one of the pluses of Homme de Caron III. Most would agree that the House of Guerlain makes very classic fragrances for men, and this particular release, which I believe was 2005, is L'Instant de Guerlain pour Homme. Now this is the old bottle style. It's now in the square bottle style, which most of them are kind of following suit these days, but this is the same fragrance formula. This is the eau de parfum concentration. This is one of the smoothest, creamiest, and most subtle gentlemanly fragrances that you'll run into. It opens with elemi, star anise, and citron. Super unique in the open. You've got jasmine and neroli in the heart, and then it uses cocoa and cedar and some other notes in the base. It gives that subtlety some weight, and the heart and the base are what really drives this fragrance. So when it dries down, it's definitively gentlemanly, elegant, and one of the best fragrances, and in my estimation, a definitely underutilized gem. If you're looking for something that's kind of a feel-good fragrance, will also help people to take you seriously, look no further than L'Instant de Guerlain by Guerlain. While the original formula was crafted in 1949, the 2018 remake is definitely an epic find. It is by Rochas. It is Mustache, the original 1949. They kept that on there so that you would know it's still part of that original formula. I really enjoy this. You talk about a fragrance, now this has been referred to as kind of a twist on a barbershop, and I'll agree with that. It's got kind of a barbershop vibe to it, but not really just a basic 4711 vetiver green fragrance, you know, with a little bit of lemongrass in there. This is a supremely bright, pervasive lemon in the open. It is so zesty. It makes use of lavender, neroli, violet, vetiver, and some white musk. One of the best, I'll just say barbershop fragrances, but it's one of the best gentlemanly barbershop fragrances. This is where the lines kind of blur, you know, in a fragrance like this. But it's definitely got the chops to be a signature scent, and it's one of the most refreshing fragrances out there in terms of gentlemen. You're looking for a fragrance for your father or grandfather, and they are a fragrance aficionado, you know what they're talking about. They've got a history with fragrances and colognes. They would very much enjoy Rochas Mustache, original 1949. Our next gentleman fragrance is from the house of Givenchy, and oddly enough, it's not one of the gentlemen or gentlemen fragrances. They have two different lines there that would be appropriate for this list, but this one was crafted, I think, in 1998. One of the best fragrances. In fact, when I think of the genre of gentleman, this is the fragrance to me that kind of defines it. It is Givenchy Pie. Just like an actual real pie, there are a ton of ingredients that go into making this the creamy, smooth, masculine, manly fragrance that it is. Definitely signature scent worthy. Mandarin, basil, tarragon, lily, jasmine, iris. I mean, there's just literally any spice that you can think of that you enjoy, that's masculine, that's heady, that works well with other spices. One of the best scent profiles that Givenchy's ever launched. Givenchy Pie is definitely among them. I believe there's even brown sugar in this. In the base, there's definitely vanilla, patchouli, vetiver, creamy, smooth, milky fragrance that has the performance of a fragrance that came out of 1998 that you would expect. Givenchy Pie. In my list videos, I try to avoid having two fragrances from the same house. In this case, I couldn't help it because both of these entries I feel are amazing. And the first one was Dolce & Gabbana Intenso. The second one is Dolce & Gabbana from the One line, and I really enjoy the One Gentleman. It's kind of Dolce & Gabbana's, at least the One's, take on the gentleman or light barbershop DNA with the seriousness and the sensuality of the One line. This opens with a spicy pepper and grapefruit with a heart of lavender, fennel, and cardamom, and the base itself is just patchouli vanilla. Very simple, very straightforward, and that's what you get in this bottle. Extremely intelligent and extremely well put together. Not only someone in a vest with a hat, but also someone with polished cufflinks could wear this fragrance. It's one of those that's refined enough to wear in a nice outfit, but also casual enough to wear pretty much anywhere. That's why the one Gentleman is a gentleman fragrance. Our next fragrance is from a house that's been helping gentlemen around the world find the right time. It is Cartier Roadster. Now, Roadster is a good example of a fragrance that is a gentleman fragrance that is not a barbershop fragrance. No super spicy notes in this fragrance. It's just all smooth all the time. This one has bergamot, mint, vetiver, patchouli, vanilla, labdanum, some darker notes in there to add some richness that envelops the lighter notes and helps push them forward. Great performance on this one. I get all day out of Cartier Roadster, and it's got a really nice heavy musky side to it that will pull back and stay on your skin for 8+ hours. One of the most refined gentleman fragrances in this list, and that's why I recommend Cartier Roadster. One might be able to appropriately argue that I saved the best for last. It is a Davidoff fragrance that is very well known for being super manly and masculine and has that kind of old school vibe to it that harkens back to 1986. It is Zino Davidoff, or Davidoff Zino. Zino is a classic man's fragrance. I gotta tell you, it's one though that it takes a certain palate to appreciate, because it was recommended by a friend to get this, and I tried it. I was like, wow, I don't know that that's something that I would wear. But I can definitively say that your taste can grow in something, and you can acquire a taste for things that you originally didn't like. Today, really enjoy this, really enjoy. But it's something that you definitely want to wear when you're in a certain mood or when you're going to a certain type of event. Another Halcyon Days fragrance that has a ton of notes in it. It opens with bergamot, clary sage, lavender. In the heart, you've got geranium, jasmine. Actually, jasmine and rose are together in this, and they're often together in the more masculine floral fragrances for men. So this one has kind of a amalgamation or mix of floral notes, spicy notes, and it has that zippy zest to it that you expect out of barbershop fragrances too. So it's kind of the best of both worlds infused into a single wonderful scent DNA. Now, if you wonder what a gentleman is, I'm not going to define that for you, but just Google Zino Davidoff and you'll see all kinds of photos. Back in the day, things were a lot different than they are now, but I think the definition still runs through being kind of the same in terms of masculinity, in terms of what a gentleman is. So if you like gentleman fragrances and you like barbershop, again, you can't find a better composition of both in a single bottle than Zino Davidoff. Well guys, that's it for my 10 fragrances that are gentleman fragrances. Fragrances that are of great quality, that take themselves seriously, that are very mature, that are excellent as signature scents. If you own any of these yourself or have worn any of these, let me know what your thoughts are and what you feel are more gentlemanly type fragrances out there that I didn't mention in today's list. But thanks so much for stopping by and taking the time out to watch today's video. As always, thank you so much for your support on my channel. I'm Tommy with Studio Sense, and I'll see you tomorrow.